A 7.62mm bullet slowly brushed past the girl's cheek, missing her skin by mere fractions of a millimeter. The bullet instantly pierced through the concrete wall behind her. The girl broke into a cold sweat from the fright. 800 meters away, the sniper Songjo sneered disdainfully. He had missed on purpose, because hanging on that wall was a photo of his arch-nemesis, the top assassin Jongman. Jian crouched in the corner, terrified. She had no idea about her uncle's other identity. However, by now, Jian had been trapped here by members of the assassin organization. She tried to pick up the handgun on the floor, but Songjo shot it away from a distance. Songjo was deliberately toying with Jian. Jian trembled with fear, never having encountered such a situation before. With her eyes tightly shut, she desperately tried to think of a way out. Suddenly, she remembered something her uncle had once told her. Every human's eyes have a blind spot. Once you grasp this, nothing is impossible. The naive girl never believed what her uncle had said. A country bumpkin who sold water pipes, pretending to be a professional assassin from the movies. In the next second, her uncle instantly pressed an ice cream spoon against her jaw, teaching her a lesson. Suddenly calming down, Jian began to think about how to locate the assassin's blind spot. Seeing the shattered mirror on the floor, she picked up a broom and taped the mirror pieces to it. Then, she slowly extended the broom out of the window. Songjo couldn't help but laugh when he saw this. He was 800 meters away, and seeing anything through a broken mirror was impossible. Thinking Jian was trying to find his location, Songjo playfully shot the mirror to pieces. Jian then extended a second mirror, which Songjo shot down again. Patiently, Songjo continued his shooting game. However, without him realizing, the positions of Jian's mirrors were gradually changing. And she finally found the sniper's blind spot. This time, the mirror wasn't hit. Songjo finally realized what was happening. Jian had deduced the sniper's position by the direction of the bullets and the speed of the sound, and Songjo's blind spot was the key to determining the location. Jian glanced at the refrigerator, then turned and climbed on top of it. She planned to leap from the fridge over the measurement point and land behind the sofa. Songjo couldn't find Jian's position through the scope, so he ordered his men to move the car forward. As the lateral view shifted, Jian's figure reappeared in Songjo's scope, and he instantly understood her intention. Jian landed heavily on the sofa but was thankfully unharmed. She tried to reach for the handgun on the floor but found her arm too short, frustratingly flipping the sofa over. This perfectly blocked Songjo's line of sight once again. Songjo was growing impatient. Meanwhile, Jian suddenly discovered something her uncle had hidden under the sofa. It was a fully equipped M24 sniper rifle with a high-powered scope. Songjo impatiently reloaded his weapon, preparing to deliver a fatal shot to Jian. But when Songjo locked his sights on her, Jian had already set up the sniper rifle and aimed it back at him. The girl's name was Jongman, and she had lived with her uncle, who sold water pipes in the countryside, since she was a child. Then one day, Jian received the shocking news that her uncle had committed suicide under mysterious circumstances. The police took Jian to the morgue to identify the body, but what puzzled her was this: the police had initially suspected foul play.
보통은 자살할 때 손목 같은 데를 긋지 않나요? 혼자서 목을 이렇게 칼로 찌른다는 게.
They had checked all the surveillance cameras around Jongman's house, and in the entire week, no one had visited except for Jongman, leading them to rule out murder. When Jian thought about it, such a mysterious death did fit her uncle's enigmatic style. At that moment, Jian noticed a strange tattoo on her uncle's body. The tattoo's meaning was assist in murder. In the 10 years she had lived with her uncle, she had never seen this tattoo before. For Jongman's funeral, Jian needed a photo of her uncle for the memorial, but she couldn't find a single picture of him at home. The only photo was a family portrait. Jian had to take a picture of his uncle alone and simply shave off the scars on his face to use it as a funeral photo. Jian found it odd that her elementary school classmate, Jongman, was at her uncle's house. It turned out Jongman was a network engineer. Jongman had started a website to sell water pipes and had asked Jongman to help manage it. Then suddenly, Jongman committed suicide. At Jongman's funeral, a strange pair of twins showed up. Ignoring everyone's questions, Jian had never seen her uncle with such colleagues before. They exuded an aura of cold, lethal intent. Outside the funeral home, danger was also lurking. Assassins were waiting for confirmation of Jongman's death, seemingly afraid of his existence. Jongman, on the other hand, discovered a bloody fingerprint on a cabinet in the bathroom where Jongman had supposedly killed himself. When he opened the cabinet, he found an old-fashioned flip phone. Jongman handed the phone to Jian. Jian had never seen her uncle with such a phone before. She flipped through the old device. Jongman suggested it might have been the phone her uncle used when selling water pipes. Just then, a text message suddenly arrived on the phone. The message read, "I have deposited 70 million. When will I receive the goods?" Jian was puzzled how many water pipes would 70 million Korean won buy. Then a balance alert from the phone's bank app popped up. Jian could hardly believe her eyes. Jian couldn't believe her eyes. She counted it over and over again, and after that, she still couldn't believe it. So she asked Jongman to take a look at it again. She was astonished that her uncle, who sold agricultural water pipes, had left her a staggering inheritance of 18.7 billion won before he died. Jian realized that there was no way her uncle had earned that kind of money selling agricultural water pipes. Jian suddenly became curious about the water pipe website Jongman had built for her uncle. Looking at the plain prices for water pipes, she wondered how many years it would take to earn 18.7 billion won. What if the purpose of this website was to hide the real one? After some tinkering, Jongman indeed found a hidden dark web within the site. On the red dark web, there was a glaring message, "Assist in murder." Jian suddenly recalled that the tattoo on her uncle's body was the same set of letters. When they opened the website, it automatically logged into her uncle's account. They clicked through and found an array of guns and ammunition. It turned out that her uncle's agricultural supplies store was just a facade, a gateway to this dark web. Looking at the various weapons and their prices, it was clear this was an arms trafficking site. Jian was dumbfounded. Her uncle, who sold water pipes, was secretly dealing in arms. At that moment, a chat box popped up in the bottom right corner, asking when the 70 million won worth of goods would be delivered. Jian was at a loss. Her uncle was dead, and she didn't understand any of this. She quickly sent a message back, asking the person to provide their account details so she could return the money. They thought this would settle the matter, but then the buyer replied, "So Jongman is really dead?" Jian was stunned. Immediately after, the buyer sent a death threat, "Then you'll die today too." Jian was bewildered. The buyer not only knew her but also wanted to kill her. Jongman quickly closed the computer, cursing that the buyer must be a lunatic and telling Jian not to worry about it. As they debated whether to call the police, the doorbell suddenly rang. A short-haired woman with fiery red lips stood outside Jongman's house. Unable to see the woman's full face, Jian felt uneasy. The woman claimed to be Jongman's Chinese tutor, here to give him a lesson. Jian didn't believe her. Her intuition was right. The woman had a gun strapped to her back. She was indeed an assassin. Just then, Jian's phone received another text message. She opened it to find another death threat. "Don't die by someone else's hand. I'll come and kill you myself." Jian.
대문이 열려 있어서 들어가 봤어요. 저기 괜찮으면 잠깐 안에 들어가서 기다리면 안 될까요?
With no one left to help, how would Jian deal with the killers hunting her? Meanwhile, a group of top assassins was gathering. A man carrying a large bag of weapons approached. The assassins immediately greeted him with utmost respect, ready to follow Master Kim's orders. Master Kim, without a word, pulled out a sharp knife from his jacket. He rolled up his sleeve, made a small cut on his arm with the knife, and retrieved a tiny identification chip from his skin. Throwing it into the fire, one of the assassins respectfully handed him a scarf, asking if Master Kim really wanted to go to such lengths. Master Kim sneered. With Jongman dead, they no longer had to fear the platform's rules. He was determined to rid himself of that pesky code. Songjo then walked in. They greeted each other. The assassins laid out their entire arsenal. It turned out every one of their weapons had been custom-made by Jongman. Unexpectedly, after Jongman's death, these assassins decided to revolt. What kind of mysterious organization was behind the dark web's murder shopping center? How would Jian save herself? 10 years ago, the assassin Jongman had briefly returned home after completing a mission. His brother had no idea about Jongman's assassin identity, thinking he was just a drifter and a small-time thug. Their mother had been longing for her youngest son's return for 8 years. It was also Jian's first time meeting her uncle. Watching her uncle rudely snatch her grilled meat, Jian was filled with curiosity about him. A few days later, Jongman's mother died. Jongman wanted to perform an autopsy on her, but his older brother scolded him harshly. Due to his special identity, Jongman couldn't explain his suspicions, fearing it might be retaliation from his enemies. That was when his brother revealed that their mother had been in the late stages of cancer and had held on just long enough to see him one last time. Despite this, Jongman remains suspicious. Mischievous Jian knocks over grandma's tribute, so sister-in-law asks Jongman to take Jian back home. As it turned out, just after Jongman left, the assassin sent by his enemy arrived. His brother was completely unprepared. As Jongman was putting Jian to bed, his phone rang suddenly. Very few people knew his number, so someone calling meant his information had been compromised.
누구야? 이 번호 어떻게 알았어?
Learning that his brother and sister-in-law were in danger, Jongman told Jian to stay home and not open the door for anyone. Jian was home alone. The assassins quickly found the house and easily broke the lock. As the killer burst through the door and prepared to harm Jian, he was suddenly pulled away by someone. Hearing the fierce fight outside, Jian felt a bit scared, but soon, the fight ended, and the door opened again. A man named Honda claimed to be Jongman's friend and was there to protect her. Seeing another group of assassins approaching, Honda locked Jian in the room, instructing her not to come out, and then shut the door. The assassins charged in. Guns blazing, Jian heard the chaotic sounds of fighting outside, which soon fell silent. Jian curiously opened the door a crack. Jian was stunned by the sight before him. Two assassins entered the room but couldn't find Jian. Just as one of them lay down on the bed to relax, he noticed the window was open. He pulled back the curtain and looked down. He was shocked to see that the little girl had the courage to escape this way. However, Jian was naturally as brave as her uncle. She knew she couldn't fall into the hands of the assassins, so without a second thought, she let go and jumped. Fortunately, there was a sofa below, and Jian landed on it unharmed. Once she hit the ground, Jian got up and started running. The assassins jumped down and chased after her. Suddenly, a car came out of nowhere and hit Jian, preventing the assassins from taking her down. Jian, unconscious, was rushed to the hospital. In her coma, Jian overheard the police talking.
야가 그 보람 장례식 부부살인 사건 그 딸내미 맞다는 거예요?
그렇다니까요. 장례식 장소 그 사달라고 엄마 아빠가 안 나타나니까 혼자 부모 찾으러 나왔다가 저렇게 된 거예요.
아유 그럼 야는 이제 어떻게 되는 거예요?
저기 친인척으로 삼촌이 하나 있기는 한데 몇 년째 행골자예요. 작년에 주민등록도 말소된 상태고.
By nighttime, the deeply traumatized Jian saw a hungry wolf jump in front of her, carrying the severed hand. Just as the wolf was about to devour her, Jian woke up in fright. At the same time, the daytime assassins had tracked her down to the hospital. When they pulled back the bed covers, they were shocked to find it empty. Jian had quietly escaped and made her way to the hospital's basement. The hallway led to the morgue, and without hesitation, Jian slipped inside. Seeing the assassins approaching, Jian opened one of the cold storage units and climbed in. At that moment, the assassins entered the room. Jian lay beside a corpse, accidentally pulling back the sheet covering it. To her shock, the corpse was her mother. Despite being a corpse, it was still her mother. Jian, far from being scared, hugged her mom tightly. One of the assassins noticed that the temperature of one of the cold storage units was different from the others. Just as he was about to open the cold storage unit, the door opened. A stumbling assassin appeared, followed by Jongman bursting in. A fierce gunfight ensued. Listening to the gunfire outside, Jian clung to her mother. Soon the gunfire stopped, and the cold storage door opened. Seeing the sleeping Jian lying next to his dead sister-in-law, Jongman was filled with guilt. Jongman pushes his sister-in-law back into the freezer, leaving the assassin's body behind. Jongman took Jian and safely left. From that moment on, Jian lived with her uncle. However, due to the trauma of losing her parents and the assassin attack, Jian developed mutism and became unable to speak. Jongman, who had been away for 8 years, nearly caused the deaths of his brother and sister-in-law during his brief return. All of this was caused by his assassin identity. Filled with guilt, Jongman repeatedly slapped himself. Because she couldn't speak, Jian became a target for bullying at school. Hearing them insult her parents, Jian grabbed a chair and struck the bad boy on the head. To help Jian overcome her trauma and start speaking again, Jongman took a cold-hearted approach. He ignored her until she initiated communication. As a killer, Jongman intends to cultivate Jian's independent and strong character. On this particular day, the bad boys in Jian's class bullied her again. They threw Jian into the playground basement and locked her inside. By midnight, trapped in the basement, Jian once again saw that vicious wolf approaching her. Jian desperately wanted to escape.
왜 이러너? 금방 오겠다 했잖아. 왜 이런 거냐고? 왜?
This was the promise Jongman had made to Jian before going to the morgue, a promise he had not kept.
너무 늦어서 미안.
From that point on, the bond between Jongman and Jian grew stronger, and they relied on each other. Jongman had also established a website on the dark web called Assist and Murder, focusing more on selling weapons rather than executing dangerous frontline missions. This website became crucial for their survival. Assist and Murder was operated with a strict hierarchical system. The site's hierarchy was indicated by codes, managed through complex programs. Only those who passed all the requirements could obtain a site code. Members granted a code by the site operator could purchase items from the Assist and Murder website. However, obtaining a code did not mean access to all products on the site. Each code had different characteristics, allowing purchases of items that matched those characteristics. The site had 4 codes in total. Red codes were for assassins, allowing them to buy guns, weapons, bombs, and toxic substances needed for killing. Purple codes were for spies, enabling the purchase of eavesdropping devices or surveillance equipment. Simple weapons and painless suicide tools were also available under this code. Yellow codes were for cleaners who could buy items needed for body disposal and cleanup, such as chemicals, detergents, and cleaning tools. These cleaners also provided administrative services to help evade the law. The final and most important code was the green code, which was entirely different from the other 3. Anyone with a code from the Assist and Murder site was forbidden from attacking green code holders. If someone violated this rule and attacked a green code holder, all code holders had to protect the green code at all costs. The only green code holders were the operator of Assist and Murder, Jongman, and his niece, Jian. Jongman had devised this method to protect them from assassins, but now, with Jongman's mysterious death, Jian could only manage a bitter smile. Suddenly, a loud explosion was heard outside. They went out to see that all 4 walls around Jongman's house had been blown open. Immediately, they saw a drone with a machine gun staring them down. The drone then opened fire. Surprisingly, all the windows in Jongman's house were made of bulletproof glass. The machine gun fire couldn't penetrate the glass. Jongman tried to call the police for help but found that his phone signal had already been blocked. Jian pulled Jongman, intending to sneak out through the back door, but when they opened the door, they found a machine gun aimed directly at it. It turned out that Jongman's steel doors were also bulletproof. Ordinary machine guns couldn't breach the house's fortified defenses. The drone then launched clay bombs from its small caliber cannon. No matter how bulletproof the glass was, it couldn't withstand the bombardment of so many clay bombs. After the glass shattered, the drone flew into the house and started shooting wildly. Jongman crawled into his bedroom and hid in his wardrobe. The drone slowly entered the room, searching for its target, and used sonar to determine that someone was hiding in the wardrobe. The drone then began firing wildly at the wardrobe. Fortunately, the wardrobe was also bulletproof. Seeing that it couldn't penetrate the wardrobe, the drone fired another clay bomb. The drone was knocked down by a slingshot shot from Jian. Then she grabbed a stool and smashed it down on the drone. 800 meters away, a fully equipped M24 and a fully equipped AWM faced off in a deadly showdown. The match between the top killers is decided in just 1 second. The female assassin Minhai's bullet hit the AWM's barrel, instantly ricocheting and killing the assassin next to Songjo. Songjo was furious as he looked at his colleague with a blown-apart head. The scene flashes back to 5 minutes earlier. The assassins, controlling the drone, successfully broke into Jongman's house and began their pursuit of Jian. However, Jian had knocked down the drone with a slingshot and then smashed it with a stool, but the danger wasn't over yet. They cautiously held up a bulletproof steel door, hiding behind it as they peered out. Another armed drone hovered in front of them. Jian tried to use the slingshot again, but the stable drone remained unfazed. Then, the machine gun fired at them with hundreds of rounds per second. They stayed motionless behind the door, afraid to move. Not far away, Minhai opened the trunk of her car, revealing an EMP gun. She set the pulse to maximum. Jian and Jongman were pinned down by the heavy fire, their scalps tingling. Suddenly, the drone's gunfire ceased. Jian thought the drone had run out of bullets and peeked out. They were blown back by the shockwave of an explosion, landing far away. Unable to move, the drone slowly approached, aiming its machine gun at them. Jian and Jongman had nowhere to hide and could only close their eyes, waiting for death. Not far away, Minhai raised her EMP gun and decisively pulled the trigger. Seeing the drone suddenly crash, the terrified Jian and Jongman were nearly scared out of their wits. Jongman started crawling to escape, but Minhai arrived swiftly and subdued him with a back throw. Minhai scanned the code on Jongman's hand with her watch, but it showed an error code. Minhai suspected Jongman's identity. Sensing that he was not simple, she injected a sedative into Jongman's neck, putting him to sleep temporarily. When Jian comes out with a slingshot, she thinks that Minhai is here to kill her and shoots Minhai with the slingshot without saying a word. But Minhai easily dodges it. Jian tried to fight Minhai head-on, but within 3 seconds, she was subdued. Minhai also scanned Jian's code with her watch. The result was green, confirming Jian's identity. She was the second protection target of the assassin website. Minhai commented on when Jian would learn to stay calm like her uncle, then released her, but Jian still couldn't trust Minhai and remained in a defensive stance. Just then, a sniper bullet pierced through the wall from a distance. Jian was still in shock, but Minhai immediately realized there was a sniper and kicked Jian to the side. Quickly finding cover, Minhai told Jian she was there to protect her. As a member of the assassin website, she must unconditionally rescue the green code holder. Jian had been secretly implanted with the green code by her uncle, Jongman. Since childhood, those who had bullied her, sexually harassed her, or owed her money had mysteriously disappeared. This was because assassins had always been protecting Jian without her knowing. Now that Jongman was dead, there was an internal revolt within the assassin website. Jian was overwhelmed by the sudden information, not knowing what to do. Minhai told Jian she must stay alert because waves of assassins would keep coming. As Minhai predicted, assassins began to swarm in. Leading them was Master Kim, an S-ranked assassin on the website. To take on this mission, he had even removed the code from his hand. A subordinate asked Master Kim if it was overkill to send a dozen assassins to hunt down a 20-year-old girl, but Master Kim insisted it was necessary. Knowing how terrifying Jongman was, even with 2 S-ranked assassins, Master Kim couldn't guarantee the mission's success. S-ranked assassin Songjo used his sniper rifle to pin everyone in the room. Minhai ignited a smoke grenade, filling the room with smoke. Seeing the smoke through his scope, Songjo was bewildered, wondering where the smoke grenade had come from. He immediately sensed something was wrong and called for backup. Another drone appeared above the house, hovering outside the window to clear out the smoke. As the smoke cleared, Minhai shot down the drone, but in doing so, she exposed herself. Songjo was stunned. Although Minhai reacted quickly, she was still shot in the arm. Master Kim also saw Minhai and immediately felt overwhelmed. Things had gotten complicated. Minhai was an S-ranked assassin with both red and purple codes on the website, significantly increasing the mission's difficulty. Master Kim immediately demanded a higher fee. As long as the price was right, he didn't care who the opponent was. Minhai tore her skirt and used the fabric to bandage her wound. Jian eyed the handgun on the ground, but as she reached for it, a sniper shot sent it flying. Jian was terrified. She looked at the 2 people nearby, one bleeding and the other just waking up. Jian forced herself to calm down. Then she remembered something her uncle had once told her. Finding the dead center of the opponent, she used a broom to make sure that the dead center of the sniper was the measuring position. She then climbed onto the refrigerator and leaped. Jian landed heavily on the sofa, thankfully unharmed. She tried to pick up the handgun on the floor but found her arm too short to reach it. Frustrated, she flipped the sofa, which conveniently blocked the assassin's view. Jian then discovered something her uncle had hidden under the sofa, a fully equipped M24 sniper rifle with a high-powered scope. Minhai asked Jian if she knew how to shoot. She then instructed Jian to load the M24 and steady the gun. The powerful recoil of the M24 knocked Jian to the ground, leaving her unable to get up for quite some time. But by then, she fully trusted Minhai. The awakened Jongman asked what they should do next. At that moment, the assassins arrived. With the increased difficulty of the mission, the assassins were both anxious and angry. Minhai instructed Jian to take Jongman to the warehouse while she stayed behind to cover them. The underground of the warehouse was Jongman's secret base. Holding up the steel door, Jian and Jongman quietly slipped out the back door. Seeing this through his scope, Songjo immediately informed Master Kim that Jian was heading to the warehouse. He then fired a bullet at the steel door, the powerful impact knocking Jian to the ground. Jongman was already dazed and sat on the ground motionless. No matter how much Jian shouted, he didn't respond. In that moment, Jian exposed half her head. Just as Songjo was about to deliver a fatal shot to Jian, Minhai had already set up the M24 and aimed at Songjo. Minhai's bullet hit the AWM's barrel, instantly ricocheting and killing the assassin next to Songjo. Feeling a bit hungry at the sight of chestnuts, Songjo picks one up and starts eating while enjoying the distant scenery. As a sniper, he felt the battlefield no longer needed him. Meanwhile, at the warehouse, Jian and Jongman entered, followed by assassins coming in from the other side. Minhai arrived from behind to support them. She quickly drew the curtain and gave Jian a meaningful look. Jian, still clueless, didn't understand. Seeing the lit-up safe on the wall, Jian finally understood Minhai's intention. The safe had a combination lock. Jian tried her uncle's birthday, but it was incorrect. She then tried her own birthday, but it was also wrong. Outside, the gunfight raged on with bullets flying everywhere, and Jian was getting increasingly anxious, forcing herself to calm down. Jian remembered something her uncle had told her. Her uncle had once told Jian to remember her student ID number, as it would be her identification in any situation. Jian entered her student ID number. The code was correct, and the passage to the secret room opened. They took the elevator down to the lowest level. To their astonishment, they discovered another massive hidden space beneath her uncle's house. They were shocked by what they saw. Everything from the assassin website was real. A red armory, a purple poison room, a yellow chemical room. Everything sold on the assassin website was there. While they were still in shock, a masked stranger appeared in the secret room. Frightened, they raised their hands.
안녕, 정지한?
Jian was bewildered, especially when the stranger claimed to know her and called himself her brother.
난 브라더야.
Meanwhile, the assassins entered the warehouse and closed the door. Minhai hid in the shadows, observing everything. A deadly showdown was about to begin. The assassins spread out to hunt Minhai. Minhai then cut the power, plunging the entire warehouse into darkness. The assassins immediately took cover. One of the assassins turns on the light to look for someone, but he becomes a target immediately. Master Kim put on night vision goggles and carefully searched for Minhai from behind cover. Minhai had already removed the cover from her M700 night vision scope. Scanning for targets, the night vision revealed everything clearly. As soon as Master Kim spotted Minhai through his night vision goggles, all the assassins focused their fire on the second floor platform. However, the only thing on the platform is the M24. Minhai quietly dropped down from the partition to the ground floor. The assassins fired for a long time without hitting anything. Master Kim knew Minhai had reached the first floor and organized the assassins to start a thorough search. Minhai almost shot Master Kim in the head from the shadows. She was like a ghost traveling around the killers. One assassin drew his gun and fired, but Minhai dodged in a serpentine pattern, then swiftly took him down with a backward grab. Two assassins saw Minhai pinned down through their night vision. As they approached, confident, and turned on the light, Minhai instantly shot and killed both of them. Hearing the gunfire, all the assassins rushed over, only to find 3 dead bodies. In the pitch-black environment, every assassin's nerves were on edge. Minhai silently observed her surroundings like a ghost. One assassin sensed someone above him, but when he looked up, the figure was gone. The next second, Minhai was behind him, cutting his throat without a sound. As she maneuvered, Minhai bumped into another assassin. Master Kim shoots at the ceiling, and all the assassins shoot at the ceiling. In an instant, the warehouse becomes brightly lit. Seizing the moment, Minhai threw a knife, killing another assassin. She then dodged the gunfire with serpentine movements. With bodies strewn across the floor, only Master Kim remained. From the shadows, Minhai taunted Master Kim, saying he was getting old. Master Kim laughed. Minhai suddenly emerged from behind, engaging Master Kim head-on. Her weakness became apparent. Her strength was no match for Master Kim. Master Kim bit down on Minhai's gunshot wound and pinned her beneath him. He pulled out a knife, ready to stab Minhai, but she held the blade at bay. In the struggle, Master Kim exerted too much force and suddenly felt unwell. His face quickly changed, a dark blue hue spreading from his heart throughout his body, his head losing color. As a dual code holder with both red and purple, Minhai was not only skilled with guns and knives but also with poison. Her blade was coated with a deadly toxin. The struggle caused Master Kim's heart to pump faster, spreading the poison quickly through his body. He collapsed and died. Minhai had temporarily eliminated the first wave of assassins, but the second wave would arrive soon. On the other side, in Jongman's underground secret base, a mysterious man in a mask suddenly appeared, holding a gun and greeting Jian. Not only did he know Jian, but he also claimed to be her brother. Jian had no idea she had a brother. The masked man then took out a pair of handcuffs and threw them on the ground, telling Jian to cuff Jongman. Jongman was dumbfounded. The masked man knew him too. Jian pretended to pick up the handcuffs and approach Jongman. Suddenly, she kicked Jongman to the ground and turned to attack the masked man, eventually choking him unconscious. When she pulled off the man's mask, Jian realized she had never seen this so-called brother before. Looking at the surveillance monitors, Jian saw footage of everywhere she lived, including her school, her home, and even her bathroom, all under surveillance. Jian thought the man in front of her was a pervert and angrily drew her gun, pointing it at him. The man hurriedly said there was no time left, that new assassins were on their way, and he needed to go support Minhai. He needed to go upstairs to deliver supplies, but Jian didn't believe a word the masked man said. At that moment, Jongman quietly slipped into another room and turned on all the lights in the secret chamber. The intense light made it impossible for brother to keep his eyes open.
색소성은 빛을 나나나나나 빛을 받은 오래 받은 아파 빨리
Jian took the opportunity to question brother about when he started monitoring her. It turned out that brother was a child taken in by Uncle Jongman during a mission and had been living in the secret base ever since. Jian put a raincoat on brother. Brother began to tell Jian everything, starting from when he arrived there. Brother had actually arrived at the base before Jian. Just as brother was halfway through his story, Jongman suddenly gagged brother with a towel, preventing him from saying another word. He warned Jian not to believe anything brother said, claiming he was just a peeping Tom obsessed with her. Since the surveillance was real, Jian believed Jongman. Jongman thought they should first try to take control of the killer shopping center's system, as it might lead them to accurate information about her uncle. Jian was a bit confused but ended up trusting Jongman completely. Jongman entered another room belonging to Jongman and was amazed to find a separate private server room. Jian watched the surveillance footage, unable to believe she had been monitored constantly. Suddenly, brother called out to Jian.
저는 믿지 마.
He then turned and ran, luring Jian to another area. Brother secretly appeared behind Jian, intending to knock her out, but Jian reacted in time, kicking brother to the ground. Brother got up and ran, with Jian chasing after him. Suddenly, Jian fell into a hidden trapdoor. It turned out that brother never planned to knock Jian out. He deliberately lured her to follow him. The secret room was actually where brother slept, and inside, there was another small room that monitored the entire secret chamber. Brother turned off the lights in the chamber and put on night vision goggles. Taking advantage of Jongman's blindness, brother knocked him out from behind with an electric gun. Brother then used a dog leash to collar Jongman. Jian saw Jongman being restrained on the monitor and was extremely anxious, fearing brother might harm him, but brother wasn't that cruel. He simply tied Jongman up and gagged him with a cloth. Brother then sat in front of the trapdoor with a tablet and began to talk to Jian. Following brother's instructions, Jian opened a drawer and found a manual for assisting in murder handovers. Flipping through the contents, Jian was utterly confused. Brother began to explain everything in detail. After brother read all the handover details to Jian, He asked if she agreed to the transfer. Jian decided to inherit her uncle's murder website and asked brother if he would really follow her orders unconditionally. Brother obediently nodded. Jian told brother to let her out, and he actually did as told. Brother explained that all of this was arranged by Jongman, who knew the assassins would rebel after his death. Jian needed to follow brother's guidance. However, Jian grabbed brother's gun and pointed it at him, demanding he release Jongman. Brother firmly refused. Jian, puzzled, asked brother if he was supposed to follow all her orders, including risking his life for her, why he wouldn't release Jongman.
사장님은 배정미 때문에 죽었다.
Despite her confusion, Jian still ordered brother to release Jongman. Once freed, Jongman got up and slapped brother. Just as he was about to continue hitting him, Jian raised her gun and aimed it at Jongman. Jongman appeared surprised and told Jian not to believe brother's nonsense. Brother stood up and grabbed the dog leash. Watching Jian trust brother more and more, Jongman began to confuse Jian. Brother tried to explain, but Jongman cut him off. Brother, being a bit simple-minded and not good at arguing, could only keep saying that Jongman would never commit suicide. Brother said that the guy in front of them came to Jongman's house, and then Jongman died mysteriously. There was no way he was uninvolved. Brother urged Jian to open the surveillance file labeled 0404 on the computer, saying everything would become clear. Jian told brother not to move. She wanted to open it herself. Just as Jian was about to click on the folder, Jongman called out to her.
클릭하는 순간 무슨 일이 벌어질지 몰라.
아니야. 그냥 빨리 클릭해서 봐.
Jian found herself in a dilemma, unsure whom to believe. At that moment, Jongman brought up an incident from Jian's childhood when bad boys locked her in the school basement. It was he who told Jongman, so Jongman came to rescue her. Hearing this, Jian looked at Jongman on the ground and then at the worried brother. Jian was torn again, not knowing what to choose. Brother, eyes tightly shut, recalled his uncle's words. No matter what choice she made, her uncle would support her, as long as she could bear the consequences. Just like when she was 13 and wanted to keep a kitten, her uncle agreed but warned her that she would have to endure the pain if the kitten died. Jian took one look at Minhai on the monitor and made up her mind. Instead of opening the file, she picks up the gun and points it at brother, who was told to leave Jongman alone and send supplies to Minhai first. Brother had no choice but to obey Jian's order. Brother placed a pair of glasses on the table, a gift for Jian. As he left, brother warned Jian again not to leave the shopping center, then ascended to the surface. Once on the ground, brother lowered the lift back down again.
뭐하나?
누나 저예요.
많이 컸네.
Meanwhile, Jian, who chose to trust Jongman, was in trouble. Jian helped Jongman up, but Jongman suddenly hugged Jian, repeatedly thanking her for her choice. Jian thought Jongman was just a bit excited and tried to pull away, but Jongman held her tightly again.
어렸을 때 그거 학교 창고에 가둔 거 그것도 나야.
Jian had made the wrong choice again, just like when she chose to keep the kitten, ending up crying her heart out. Her uncle could only respect her decision. Jongman held a syringe of anesthetic, and Jian suddenly found the Jongman in front of her so unfamiliar, falling to the ground and gradually losing consciousness. Jongman's true nature was finally exposed. Jian glanced at the glasses on the table, which were pointed directly at Jongman seated nearby. Before losing consciousness, Jian asked Jongman who he really was. Jongman smiled mysteriously and didn't answer. No one knew who he truly was. An assassin controlled a battlefield robot dog with a steam deck, making it leap from a 100-meter-high bridge and land without a scratch. Once activated, the robot dog scanned the area comprehensively, even checking every passing dog. Then it charged into Jongman's house at 100 kilometers per hour. Minhai was inspecting weapons at that moment. The robot dog arrived at the house first. Seeing the uninvited guest, Minhai immediately picked up her gun and started shooting. Minhai and brother were temporarily safe, but the danger was far from over. The assassins had surrounded the house. The robot dog used its body to hold open the bulletproof shutter door, creating the only entry point for the assassins. Once all the assassins were inside, they realized the house was completely sealed, trapping them inside. But the assassins remained calm, with a technician using the steam deck to activate the robot dog's infrared thermal imaging. Minhai and brother were clearly visible inside the house. Minhai knew the door wouldn't stop the assassins. She threw brother a gun. Through the door, the robot dog activated its exoskeleton and used a diamond drill to bore a small hole in the steel plate. All the assassins put on gas masks. Minhai and brother also put on gas masks. As tear gas was injected, the battle was about to erupt. Meanwhile, in the basement, Jian was tied to a chair by Jongman. Unable to move, Jian saw Jongman talking on the phone with a mysterious person. Jongman's mission was to steal the original code of the murder assistance website, followed by an order to shoot Jian. Jongman picked up the gun, ready to kill Jian. Jian suddenly asked Jongman how he knew about the childhood incident when it wasn't him who locked her in the basement. Jongman laughed. It turned out that the boys who bullied Jian back then were part of Jongman's gang. It seemed like Jongman stopped them from throwing milk at her, but in reality, he was their leader. Jongman had urged the boys to lock Jian up, wanting to see if she was really mute. Jongman laughed, saying Jian should thank him for curing her muteness. Jian was furious, and Jongman's smugness only grew. Jongman thought Jian was too dumb to know more secrets, but he couldn't resist boasting about killing Jongman and revealing the existence of another secret organization, a killer group called Babylon. Jongman was a talented hacker who once infiltrated Jongman's murder assistant's darknet for 1 minute. One day, Jongman returned home to find a mysterious person sitting there. Before he could react, the assassin knocked him down instantly. The assassin looked at Jongman's toy gun collection and sneered, then issued a final 1-minute ultimatum. A companion sat in front of the computer, bruised and disheartened, while Jongman frantically operated the computer. Nearby, an assassin calmly fitted a silencer onto a gun. As the time limit ended, Jongman successfully traced the IP address of the murder assistance site. The assassin glanced at the screen. Jongman was so scared he almost wet himself. The assassin then turned around and sat down. Jongman was stunned, watching as his companion was shot in the head, blood splattering across the computer and dripping from the desk to the floor. It was as if a new world had suddenly opened up for Jongman. It turned out that the killers from the movies really existed in real life. Jongman suddenly felt excited instead of scared. The assassins laughed, impressed by the boy's bravery. Thus, Jongman was noticed by Babylon. Back then, Jongman already felt he was different from ordinary people. Jian told him to cut the crap. She didn't want to know about Jongman's past, only about how Uncle Jongman died. Jongman told Jian to be patient and listen to the whole story. Babylon's leader, Jongman, showed Jongman a photo of Jongman, then a photo of Jian. Jongman gave Jongman a mission to go undercover at Jongman's house and steal the website's original code. Jongman introduced himself as Jian's elementary school friend. Applying for the position of warehouse manager, Jongman easily agreed. Jongman secretly used a pinhole camera to spy on Jongman, trying to find traces of him accessing the darknet. But Jongman spent every day working in the warehouse, so Jongman could only follow along and work. However, Jongman was terrible at manual labor. He couldn't even move the water pipes. Jongman didn't say much, seemingly unconcerned, and then turned and left. Jongman checked the hidden camera pen he had placed. Strangely, the pen, which was aimed at the seat, had been turned in another direction. He thought he might have placed it incorrectly. Jongman ignored everything else and continued to use the hidden camera pen to secretly film, but he didn't find anything valuable. The warehouse was just full of water pipes. Jongman quietly hid the pen and then asked Jongman how Jian was doing recently, but Jongman didn't respond, leaving Jongman awkwardly smiling. Then Jongman received a text message on his phone, another ultimatum from Babylon. If he couldn't steal the original code, he would likely be killed. Jongman had no choice but to lie, saying he needed to use the bathroom. Jongman waved him off to go. In the bathroom, Jongman washed his face and took out the hidden camera pen, revealing that the second half was a USB drive. He had to find a way to steal the original code. His life depended on it. After leaving the bathroom, Jongman slowly walked to the door of Jongman's room. Just as he was about to open the door and enter, he froze in fear. Looking around but seeing no one, it turned out to be the ceiling speaker talking to him. Then Jongman walked into the room. Jongman said he just wanted to take a look at Jian's house and apologized for his earlier rudeness. Jongman seemed unconcerned. As Jongman was about to leave, Jongman suddenly asked if he majored in computer engineering. Jongman, unsure of how Jongman knew this, instinctively answered yes. Jongman said his computer was broken and asked Jongman to take a look at it. Jongman discovers that Jongman's computer is poisoned and needs only a simple antivirus and wait for a while.
수리비를 어떻게 줘야 될까?
왜 그러세요? 저 지안이랑 진짜 많이 친했었다니까요. 이 정도는 그냥 해드려도.
몇 학년 때 친구인데? 내가 지안이 친구를 한 번도 본 적이 없어서 언제적 친구인가 궁금해서.
저 진짜 어렸을 때인데 초등학교 2학년 때.
걔가 어렸을 때부터 말을 싸가지 없게 해서 친구가 없었는데.
지안이가 그때 말을 잘 못했잖아요. 제가 나름 옆에서 많이 도와줬는데.
Jongman had already noticed something suspicious about Jongman and was just quietly watching him try to be clever. Jongman, however, was completely unaware of this. Jongman said he had other things to attend to and told Jongman to fix the computer, then turned and left. As soon as Jongman walked away, Jongman pulled out a USB drive and installed a virus on the computer. He smiled, proud of his cunning. Little did he know that every move he made was being monitored in real time by brother in the secret room. That evening, Jongman logged into the murder assistance website as expected. Meanwhile, Jongman was monitoring every action on Jongman's computer and successfully stole Jongman's login credentials. When he opened the site, he saw it was filled with murder weapons. Jongman laughed triumphantly. It was all too easy. At that moment, his phone buzzed with a message from Jongman. Just then, there was a noise at the door, and an assassin entered, holding a gun. Sensing danger, Jongman quickly began to work on the computer. The assassin aimed his gun at Jongman, ready to eliminate him. But Jongman was prepared for this. He had set up a contingency. If he was killed, the murder assistance website would reset, and Babylon would lose access. Only he could disable this setup. Jongman was bewildered. He thought he had everything perfectly planned, but he forgot that a professional assassin organization wouldn't let a kid threaten them. Besides, Babylon needed the original code for the website. Login credentials were useless. To protect himself, Jongman proposed another plan. Babylon agreed, and eventually, the plan succeeded. Then Jongman opened the 0404 folder. The scene begins with Jongman tied up and hanging from the ceiling by Jongman. In the footage, Jongman repeatedly looks at his phone. The scene then shifts, and Jongman falls to the ground. Jongman walks into the bathroom and looks into the mirror. At this point, the footage suddenly cuts off, and the remaining scenes disappear. Jongman laughs, realizing that brother was just bluffing. Jongman then pulls out the hidden camera pen, eager to show Jian how he toyed with Jongman. He plugged the USB stick into the computer and the scene continued to start. Jongman repeatedly listens to Jian's cries for help. Finally, he makes up his mind, throws his phone aside, and agrees to Jongman's demands. He tells Jongman to immediately release Jian as agreed. Jongman readily agrees, and then Jongman calls his friend. Jongman then turns and leaves. Jongman yells at Jongman to let him go. Jongman turns back with suppressed anger.
약속 지키라고 똑바로 전해. 바빌론 쪽에 알겠으면 고개 끄덕여.
Entering the bathroom, Jongman closes the door. Jongman struggles to his feet and pushes open the bathroom door, finding Jongman lying in the bathtub, his carotid artery slashed, bleeding to death. Jongman looks at the dead Jongman and vomits. In the end, he laughs excitedly, Jongman excitedly admiring his masterpiece. At this moment, Jian starts laughing through her tears. Jongman is bewildered by Jian's laughter. Jian mocked Jongman, calling him nothing but a small-time lackey. She ridiculed him for thinking he was clever while acting so self-important. In reality, he's just Babylon's lapdog, forced to work under the threat of a gun, a disposable tool.
너는 그냥 소모품일 뿐이라고.
Jongman, struck to the core, becomes furious.
그래. 그래서 아까 질질 짜면서 우리 집 복도를 기어다녔구나. 오줌 안 지린 게 다행이네.
Feeling humiliated, Jongman decides to shoot Jian. Jian seizes the moment and kicks Jongman in the leg. After knocking Jongman down, Jian gets up and heads to the warehouse to get a gun, but all the guns in the warehouse are locked away. Out of Jian's reach, Jongman grabs his gun and fires wildly, missing Jian every time. Hiding, Jian contemplates her next move. She recalls her uncle telling her to use every situation to her advantage and to do whatever it takes to survive. Seeing the cabinet full of chemicals, Jian devises a plan. Meanwhile, Jongman continues to brag, but he falls into Jian's trap. Jian suspends Jongman in midair. Jongman, now scared, tries to beg for mercy, but Jian punches him in the nose, causing it to bleed profusely, followed by a brutal kick. Before long, Jian had beaten Jongman to a pulp, leaving his fate uncertain. Jian, now at a loss, doesn't know what to do next. She then opens the murder assistant's handover manual her uncle left her. On the title page, Jongman gave her two choices. The first option was an escape route that Jongman had already prepared for her. At the end of the escape tunnel, there's Jian's new identity and a huge inheritance that will be enough for Jian's future. There was also the phone number of an assistant who could help Jian perfectly change her identity, allowing her to be reborn and forget the past. The second option was to join those currently fighting to protect her, standing together to guard this place. No matter what Jian chose, Jongman would support her decision. Meanwhile, Minhai and the assassins were engaged in a fierce battle inside the house. Jian ultimately chose to stand alongside her uncle's comrades. Jian pulled out 2 grenades, and Minhai immediately understood. By now, most of the assassins were dead or injured, but their leader Kuma had not been killed in the explosion. They hid in the bathroom, with Minhai severely injured, bleeding profusely from a stomach wound. Suddenly, Kuma burst through the door. Jian was no match for Kuma, who body-slammed her, nearly paralyzing her and leaving her helpless on the ground. Kuma, looking at his injured face, was about to kill Jian. However, Songjo, through the intercom, insisted that Jian must be kept alive. Babylon needed Jian's facial recognition to access the original murder assistance code. Kuma paid no attention. His face had been blown apart, so he decided to leave Jian with half a face, just as he was about to cut Jian's face off with a knife. Jian, seeing the blurry figure, almost thought her uncle had returned. Instead, it was her uncle's friend Pazin who came to save her. Pazin was Jian's mentor, who had taught her Muay Thai in self-defense. Pazin told Jian that time was running out and to get ready because Bale was about to die. Jian had no idea who Bale was. Pazin explained that Bale was Jongman's archenemy and the one who had killed his parents. Meanwhile, on the other side, Bale was monitoring everything from behind the scenes. Seeing that Jian, Jongman's niece, was so difficult to deal with, he sent out his top enforcers, the twin assassins. This was bound to be a deadly battle. Bale, a mercenary from the Babylon group, is addicted to killing and has a thirst for blood. When faced with ordinary civilians pleading for help, Bale trapped 4 young girls in a confined space and threw a grenade inside. His teammates were stunned. There was no soul in Bale's eyes, and any life in front of him seemed as insignificant as an ant. As a mercenary, Bale not only kills civilians but also his own teammates. Unable to stand Bale's rampant killing, Jongman finally engaged in a deadly battle with him. 14 years ago, Jongman was the leader of one of the Babylon mercenary squads. At that moment, he was on a rescue mission amid a hail of bullets in a certain country. They were already surrounded by local armed forces, and Jongman fought back desperately while Bale deserted his post during the battle. On the other side, the sniper's vantage point was discovered by the local armed forces, leading to a life-and-death struggle. At that moment, Sniper Songjo was pinned down by an armed soldier with a knife, his life hanging by a thread. Fortunately, a new mercenary, Songhwan, saved Songjo just in time. Songjo hugged Songhwan, grateful for saving his life. Just as they were rejoicing, more armed soldiers arrived and aimed their guns at them. Before they could react, the armed soldiers were instantly killed. It turned out that Bale had come to the rescue. Seeing the wounded soldiers still alive on the ground, Bale picked up a large machete and ruthlessly finished them off. Songjo was unfazed, but Songhwan was shocked. Songhwan hadn't expected the infamous Bale to be so ruthless. Bale seemed to thoroughly enjoy the thrill of slaughter. Bale instructed Songjo to continue sniping on the battlefield while he went alone to clear the entire building of pursuers. Songjo lifted his AWM, and through the night vision scope, the soldiers appeared like torches. On the battlefield, Jongman calmly chewed his gum, feeling reassured as he watched the armed soldiers fall one by one. The rescue mission was soon successfully completed. Just as they were preparing to withdraw, they lost contact with Bale and Songjo. Worried about their safety, Jongman and Pazin decided to search the building. At that moment, Bale discovered 2 civilians in the building. The civilians were crying and begging Bale to save their children. Bale picked up a handgun from the local armed forces and directly shot and killed the unarmed civilians with 2 bullets. Jongman and Pazin immediately became alert upon hearing the gunshots. Bale calmly looked at the civilians he had just killed. Coincidentally, Songhwan witnessed the scene. At that moment, Songhwan had no idea that Bale was a bloodthirsty killer. Just then, Songjo walked in, noticing Songhwan's strange expression and asked what had happened. Songhwan stammered that Bale had killed those civilians. Songjo, already aware of Bale's bloodthirsty nature, was unsurprised. Bale placed the handgun back into the hand of one of the armed soldiers he had killed. Songjo immediately understood. Jongman arrived a moment later, seeing the dead teammates on the ground, and asked what had happened. Songjo lied to Jongman and told him that Songhwan had been killed by the militia by mistake. Jongman looked around at the scattered corpses and Bale's calm demeanor. Being smart, Jongman had a good idea of what had happened, but he couldn't say anything. He could only close Songhwan's eyes. Just then, a shadow appeared at the door, and the 3 men immediately became alert. It turned out to be a young boy holding a gun. Bale seemed to see him as prey. Jongman observed carefully and noticed the boy's gun had no magazine. Jongman was about to warn them, but before he could finish, Bale's bullet had already been fired. Bale's indifferent eyes reappeared. Jongman is shocked that Bale even kills children. Their military action was soon reported to the local military court. 9 civilians had died in this mission. Bale was imprisoned as a key war criminal. Songjo and Jongman testified as witnesses. However, Songjo did not tell the truth. He covered up Bale's killing of civilians. It was soon Jongman's turn to testify. At that time, Jongman arrived late, unaware of the specific situation and did not see Bale personally kill the civilians. Songjo said the situation was dangerous and they almost died at the hands of the armed forces. If it weren't for Bale, they would have been dead.
총에 탄창이 없었다니까.
Jongman questioned Songjo about what Bale meant by needing to eliminate witnesses. What could a child have witnessed? Moreover, Jongman also discovered that the bullet that killed Songhwan was a .45 caliber. The local armed forces didn't have such weapons. Only their own people did. Supervisor Lee Yonghan questioned Jongman for investigating his own people. Lee Yonghan told Jongman to just tell what he saw in court.
Let me ask you again. During the mission, did you or did you not see the dependents killing civilians?
Jongman looked into Bale's eyes and thought about what Lee Yonghan had said. Bale's eyes were soulless. He was a born fighting machine with no guilt even when killing. Mercenaries needed such exceptional talents, and killing a few civilians was nothing. Jongman and Bale had the same abilities, but their personalities were completely opposite. Songjo found Bale's gaze terrifying and sometimes wasn't sure if Bale was human or a monster, but at least when working with Bale, he felt he wouldn't die that day.
근데 저형은 안 그래. 항상 우리 목숨보다는 미션이 더 중요하잖아.
Lee Yonghan believed that Jongman and Bale were both cold as ice, unwavering even in the fiercest battles. Jongman, however, thought he was nothing like Bale. He never enjoyed killing. Bale even killed children. Lee Yonghan advised Jongman that they were mercenaries now, not soldiers, and civilian casualties were inevitable. Helpless, Jongman agreed not to speak out, but on one condition: he wanted Bale out of his team. Lee Yonghan agreed. In court, Jongman did not reveal Bale's killing of civilians. Bale was acquitted due to lack of evidence, but Jongman was irritated by Bale's expression. Soon, another mission came up. Lee Yonghan went back on his word. The mission was highly dangerous, and the mercenary high command worried that Jongman couldn't handle it alone, so they sent Bale along. Lee Yonghan said the high command's decision was beyond his control but promised Jongman it would be the last time. On the plane, the atmosphere was tense. Songjo mockingly teased Jongman.
나는 솔직하게 우리 팀장이 재판장에서 그럴 줄 몰랐어. 아니, 맨날 애누리 없이 원칙만 따지니까. 쟤 재판장에서 뭔 일 내는 거 아닌가 쪼까 걱정했는데 그래도 우리 정형 의리가 있는 스타일이야. 응? 역시 식구가 먼저지. 나 정형 다시 봤다니까. 안 그냐?
존나 시끄럽네 선조. Too much talk.
Pazin, annoyed, cursed at Songjo. Songjo, not one to back down, cursed back, grabbing Pazin's face and telling him to behave. Pazin, enraged, put a claw knife to Songjo's neck. Songjo, unafraid, was ready to fight Pazin.
너 잘 치지? 근데 어찌냐? 나도 잘 친디. 자신 있으면 어디 명줄 한번 끊어보시든가. 어?
After Songjo's words, the twins also stood up. Pazin prepared to fight Songjo.
나 오늘 죽어라.
이성조 그만해.
But they didn't listen until Bale told him to sit down. Songjo immediately backed down, putting away his knife and returning to his seat. Before the operation, Jongman warned Bale not to act alone, but Bale ignored him and walked away. The mission ended quickly, while clearing the battlefield. The twins discovered civilians hiding behind the ruins. Remembering that Jongman forbade killing civilians, Bale suddenly drew his gun and handed it to a teammate, then pulled out his military knife and tossed it to the civilian. The civilian, bewildered, didn't know what the mercenary intended and instinctively picked up the knife. Now the civilian was armed, while Bale was unarmed. Bale then walked up and told the civilian to attack him. When the civilian hesitated, Bale grabbed his hair, forcing him to act. Bale immensely enjoyed this murderous pleasure, feeling delighted at the sound of the civilian's intestines hitting the ground. The other civilian, terrified, picked up the gun from the ground. Meanwhile, Captain Jongman and Pazin were chasing their target. Jongman shot the target in the leg. The target crawled into his bedroom, trying to reach the gun on the bed, but Pazin subdued him. The bed was piled with cash and 2 passports. Jongman noticed a set of lingerie on the bed and shoes on the floor. Receiving Jongman's message that the target was captured, everyone relaxed and started wandering around. Songjo saw a locked cell door and knocked it open, hearing a girl scream from inside. Unexpectedly, there were girls imprisoned for entertainment. The girls cried out for help. Bale then asked the twins for their grenades. Songjo was confused. The explosion alerted Jongman. Bale's eyes were soulless, and any life in front of him seemed as insignificant as an ant. Jongman rushed over and saw the brutally killed girls. He was instantly furious. Realizing this was Bale's doing, the atmosphere became extremely tense. Jongman drew his gun and aimed it at Bale. Bale stands in front of the gun and tells Jongman to kill him. Songjo tried to calm the situation, warning that if a shot was fired, they all might die there. Ultimately, Jongman held back, deciding to report everything accurately to the company. They set up the explosives and prepared to leave. Just as Jongman finished setting up the bomb, he suddenly noticed that the money and lingerie on the bed were gone. He looked around and saw that the wardrobe door had been tampered with. Jongman aimed his gun at the wardrobe, and suddenly a woman burst out. It turned out that this was the moment when Minhai was rescued by Jongman. Seeing the pitiful Minhai, Jongman covered her with his own clothes. Jongman signaled Minhai to remain silent. The team quickly evacuated. Jongman told his teammates to go ahead while he stayed behind to cover them. As Bale and the others left, the bomb's countdown was almost up. Jongman ran back to get Minhai.
어따이니 주지.
But Bale had already seen through Jongman's ploy and mocked him for staying behind to have fun. Jongman drew his gun but didn't shoot Bale, knowing it wouldn't do him any good to kill a valuable asset to the company. Jongman then fled with Minhai. Bale caught up and shot Jongman. Jongman told Minhai to go ahead while he stayed to hold off Bale. Seeing Jongman draw his knife, Bale discarded his gun, ready to fight him. The pain only fueled Bale's bloodlust, making him even more formidable. Jongman was no match for him. Just as Bale was about to kill Jongman, a shot grazed Bale's left eye from afar. Jongman turned to see that Minhai had come back to save him. At this point, Jongman knew he had to kill Bale to eliminate the threat.
장군만 내 말 똑똑히 들어. 지금 나 못 죽이면 내가 네 가족, 네 친구, 너랑 관련된 모든 인간들 다 죽이고 맨 마지막에 죽일 거야.
To ensure Bale was dead, Jongman picked up a gun and fired several shots at Bale, but the gun was empty. With the bomb's countdown almost up, they had to leave. With the company's top operative dead, Jongman became the prime suspect and was subjected to a thorough investigation upon returning. In the end, they had no evidence and had to release Jongman. Jongman no longer wanted to serve the company and applied to leave the mercenary group. Though the company officially let him go, they secretly monitored his every move. Jongman noticed this and didn't dare expose his own forces. He had to go home, fearing that Bale might not be dead and that Bale's men might harm his family. Returning home after 8 years, his family was waiting for him. His sister-in-law couldn't help but marvel at how handsome her brother-in-law had become. His older brother was at a loss for words. His mother looked relieved and happy. 8-year-old Jian hid behind her mother, a little scared of her uncle. The family was finally reunited.
너는 이름이 뭐야?
지안, 정지안.
On the other side, at a mine, Songjo was practicing sniping. He was in excellent form today, hitting every target. It seemed like a sign that something good was about to happen. Just then, a figure approached from behind him. Songjo immediately became alert and drew the pistol from his leg. A man with a build very similar to Bale's stood before him. The man removes his sunglasses and he is none other than Bale, who was blind in one eye. Bale was still alive. Songjo was shocked by Bale's presence and quickly hid Bale's watch up his sleeve, afraid that Bale might see it. Bale had come back to seek revenge on Jongman. A group of mercenaries surrounded a private car with guns, firing at it with submachine guns. The target inside the car was Jongman, an assassination target with a bounty of 3 billion won. Even an old woman killer was there with a hunting rifle, trying to get a piece of the action. However, Jongman's car was bulletproof, and they couldn't make a dent. In just a second, these mercenaries would understand why Jongman was worth 3 billion won. As the trunk lid slowly opened, a seemingly ordinary private car revealed a hidden heavy machine gun in the back seat. After Jongman killed his enemy Bale, he completely withdrew from the Babylon mercenary group and returned to his home after 8 years. However, the thing Jongman feared still happened. Bale was really not dead. Bale had once warned Jongman that if he miraculously survived, he would kill everyone Jongman knew. Bale gathered all of Jongman's former subordinates and launched a hunt for Jongman's entire family. In the hospital, Jongman's mother lay on her bed, feeling a shadow standing at the bedside. She thought it was her son Jongman coming to see her, but she realized the person in front of her was not her son. Even with sunglasses on, Bale's fierce and evil gaze was unmistakable. In the next second, Bale smothered Jongman's mother to death. Bale still took great pleasure in killing, and this time it was a double pleasure of revenge and murder. The sudden death of his mother made Jongman more vigilant. He sensed that his mother's death was suspicious, but for safety reasons, he didn't inform his elder brother explicitly. This indirectly led to the tragic death of his brother and sister-in-law. His brother was furious with Jongman for wanting to perform an autopsy on their mother. Just then, Jian caused a disturbance at the funeral hall. To avoid a quarrel between the brothers, his sister-in-law asked Jongman to take Jian home to sleep. Who would have thought that as soon as Jongman left, Songjo would arrive with killers. As the technicians covered all the surveillance at the funeral home, Songjo lured Jongman's brother and sister-in-law to the roof of the funeral home. At this moment, Jongman's brother still didn't realize what was about to happen. His sister-in-law saw a few people lurking in the shadows on the roof, staring at them menacingly. Leading them was Bale. Soon, his sister-in-law fell into a pool of blood, struggling to crawl towards her husband. On the other end, Bale had his foot on the brother's head, looking coldly at the woman who was about to die. Songjo stands by the woman and narrates the death script for the couple.
사모님이 바람이 나서 박하 장관이 박이 치셨다. 그래서 사모님을 죽이고 본인도 자살.
Bale was extremely pleased at this moment. He had vowed to kill everyone around Jongman. Before his sister-in-law could finish speaking, Bale stomped on the brother's neck, breaking it. Watching her husband die miserably in front of her, the sister-in-law let out a horrified scream, but she too was met with a brutal death. Songjo mercilessly cut her trachea with a knife. Jongman's brother and sister-in-law were ruthlessly killed by Bale and his men. The twins wiped the fingerprints off the knife that killed the sister-in-law and placed it in the brother's hand, then threw his body off the funeral home's rooftop. Elsewhere, Jongman was restless when he received a call from his former subordinate, Jun Cheol. That's when Jongman realized that not only was Bale not dead, but he'd gone to the funeral parlor to find his brother and sister-in-law. Jongman hurriedly texted Honda to protect Jian, while he rushed to the funeral home to save his brother and sister-in-law. Soon, the killers arrived at Jongman's home. Just as the killers were about to silence Jian, Honda arrived just in time. The two immediately engaged in a fierce battle. After dealing with the killers, Honda hid Jian in a room. Then, as more killers came in with guns, Honda emerged from the side and began fighting again. Hearing the gunshots, Songjo quietly crept upstairs. As Honda was in a gunfight with the killers, Songjo grabbed an axe and charged at him. Honda knocked out one of Songjo's teeth with a punch. Looking at the heavily injured and dying Honda, Songjo tried to take Honda's brass knuckles but couldn't pull them off, so he chopped off Honda's arm with a knife. To protect Jian, Jongman's most trusted friend also met a tragic death. Honda's phone still had a message from Jongman asking if he was safe. Meanwhile, Jongman was losing his mind with worry, unable to reach his brother, sister-in-law, or Honda. As he entered a tunnel, an old woman blocked his way. The old woman said her car had broken down and asked Jongman to get out and help. Jongman, having no time for this, prepared to reverse and leave. At that moment, a truck crashed into the back of Jongman's car. Dazed and confused from the collision, Jongman realized he had fallen into a trap. A large group of mercenaries swarmed out of the truck, led by Jun Cheol, who had just tipped off Jongman. Jun Cheol didn't want to confront Jongman, but Bale threatened his family. The mercenaries lined up and began firing wildly at Jongman. The seemingly ordinary old woman was also an assassin, shooting at the car with a shotgun. However, Jongman's car had been upgraded to top-tier bulletproofing, and the ordinary bullets couldn't penetrate it. Seeing that the bullets couldn't get through, the assassins stopped shooting. The car was riddled with bullet holes, but to everyone's surprise, as the trunk slowly opened, it revealed a heavy machine gun that Jongman had installed inside. The assassins were instantly killed or injured. Jun Cheol hid behind the truck, feigning calmness. He aimed his gun out but found that Jongman was no longer in the car. Suddenly, Jongman appeared behind him. The old woman's shotgun was extremely powerful, and at close range, Jongman was unfortunately hit. Fortunately, Jongman managed to escape in the end. Elsewhere, assassins arrived at a hardware store. This hardware store was run by Honda and Jongman together. On the surface, it was a hardware store, but in reality, it was a transit point for their arms dealing and the precursor to their assassination website. Honda's younger brother was a genius hacker. Honda provided the creative ideas for assisting assassinations. His brother later successfully developed the dark web for assassination assistance. Jongman used his industry reputation to expand their business. At this moment, the assassins came to kill Minhai, who was hiding there. Since being rescued by Jongman, Minhai had been hiding here. Bale sent assassins to kill the woman who had blinded him in one eye. Minhai saw the assassins on the surveillance and hid under the table, waiting for the right moment. The assassins didn't notice the trap above them. As Minhai pulled the rope, a bucket of sulfuric acid poured directly onto an assassin's head, causing him to scream in pain. Minhai then jumped out with a submachine gun and started firing, killing 2 assassins instantly. Seeing that one assassin was still alive, Minhai didn't hesitate to finish him off. Having never been trained, Minhai was a natural-born killer. Before leaving, Minhai activated the self-destruct device in the room, and the ensuing fire would destroy everything inside. Pazin returned home to find his door lock broken and blood on it. Pazin immediately became alert and quietly entered the house, pulling out a hidden claw knife. He thought it was an enemy seeking revenge, but it turned out to be Jongman. At this point, Jongman had already been shot and was unconscious on the ground. Pazin quickly began to treat Jongman, removing the bullet from his body. After a long time, Jongman regained consciousness. Pazin didn't want to be involved with Babylon anymore. He had left after Jongman did. Pazin told Jongman to leave once he woke up. Jongman agreed but asked for a gun. Pazin didn't understand why the usually obedient Jongman was trying to kill Bale, making the situation so complicated. He then tossed Jongman a gun. Jongman, wounded, staggered away to rescue his niece Jian. In the hospital, Jian was being chased by killers into the morgue. Jian hid inside a freezer, which coincidentally held her mother's corpse. Outside, Jongman had already arrived. The two technicians hiding in the car were instantly killed by him. From the surveillance, it was clear the killers were at the morgue door. Just as the killer was about to open the freezer door, the morgue door swung open. A killer appeared, and the killers inside let their guard down. Jongman dodges out from behind the killer. The killers were easily dealt with by Jongman. Jongman then took Jian away, but they encountered Bale in the hallway. Bale, upon seeing his archenemy Jongman, immediately drew the gun from his waist, ready for a showdown. Suddenly, a group of mourners came between them. They stood there quietly, staring at each other. In the blink of an eye, Jongman and Jian had vanished. Elsewhere, Babylon Task Force leader Lee Yonghan returned home. His grandson joyfully ran out to greet his grandfather, making Lee Yonghan very happy. Then his grandson, holding a toy gun, caused a sudden change in Lee Yonghan's expression. Jongman was in Lee Yonghan's house. The family, unaware of their grudge, warmly invited Jongman to dinner. Lee Yonghan was inwardly apprehensive. After dinner, Jongman tossed a gun onto the table. Lee Yonghan asked Jongman what it meant. Jongman calmly said that there were 5 bullets left in the gun. Lee Yonghan had 4 family members: his son, daughter-in-law, grandson, and wife. After sending them off, 1 bullet would still be left. Jongman had enough time to kill Lee Yonghan's entire family and then Lee Yonghan himself, but Jongman chose not to. Lee Yonghan realized that Jongman wanted to negotiate, so he asked what he wanted. Jongman, with a grim face, said that the deaths of his mother, brother, sister-in-law, and friend were enough punishment for causing trouble. If Babylon stopped now, Jongman would also stop and take Babylon's secrets to the grave. Otherwise, it would be a fight to the death. Seeing that Jongman didn't kill his family, Lee Yonghan called Bale.
나다. 김마이는 여기서 멈추겠다는데 너 멈출 수 있겠냐?
Bale hung up the phone and smiled sinisterly. With an unknown meaning, Babylon might stop. But Jongman knew that Bale wouldn't, and Jongman didn't plan to let it go either. He needed time to recuperate and plan a long-term revenge to completely overthrow Bale, who was backed by Babylon. Jongman bought a piece of wasteland and, with Pazin, built an underground killing mall and a solid residential fortress. Jongman also took Honda's younger brother, having him manage the killing mall warehouse. Minhai was trained by Pazin to become a top-tier assassin. Jongman subtly taught Jian some assassin skills as she grew up, preparing for the day Bale would come. In the final showdown at the killing mall, Jian successfully eliminated her father's killer. Defending the mall for Jongman returned, badly injured but alive. Minhai was severely wounded protecting Jian, her life hanging by a thread. Fortunately, Pazin arrived in time to save Jian and performed emergency surgery on Minhai. He removed all the bullets from Minhai's body and saved Minhai's life. Meanwhile, brother, leaning against the wall, took a few deep breaths and smelled gunpowder. A long fuse was hidden in the crack of the door. Cunning Jongman had planted a bomb in his home's secret passage. Pazin picked up a gun and prepared to take Jian and Minhai to hide in the Assassin's Mall. They hid in the Assassin's Mall, and the mercenaries outside couldn't break in immediately. However, brothers stopped them from entering the mall through the secret passage. None of them knew about the bomb Jongman had planted. The mall was designed to always have a manager on duty 24/7, a practice that had been maintained for 14 years without interruption. Brother begged Jian to stay in the mall. If the mall was without a manager, it would be considered an emergency, and the mall system would shut down and close, only restarting after 24 hours. They couldn't get into the mall now, just as they were at their wits' end. The mechanical dog suddenly went berserk. spinning in circles. Pazin thought the mechanical dog had malfunctioned. Cautious Minhai told Pazin to quickly disable the mechanical dog. In the next second, the mechanical dog emitted a powerful sonic attack, shattering all the glass. The mechanical dog was fully bulletproof, and the shotgun couldn't damage it. Brother had already been knocked unconscious by the sound waves. Jian dragged brother into the bathroom to hide. At that moment, a large jeep crashed through the bulletproof shutter door into the house. Minhai and Pazin were left dazed and disoriented. The twin assassins slowly got out of the car, and Songjo once again faced Jian. Jian locked brother in the bathroom, then slipped into a room and picked up a knife from the floor. Songjo followed her into the room. This life and death scene had played out in Jian's childhood, and Songjo lamented how quickly time had passed. Songjo opened the wardrobe door to find it empty, then looked under the bed. Jian's foot was exposed. Reacting quickly, Songjo subdued her, and Jian couldn't break free from his grip. Brother comes to help, and hits Songjo with a stick, making him look confused. Brother pinned Songjo down, urging Jian to escape. Everyone could die, as long as Jian survived. Jian fled in panic. Elsewhere, Minhai tried to fight back but was shot by the twins, leaving her incapacitated. Seeing Minhai gravely injured, Pazin's anger reached its peak. He prepared for a desperate battle with the twins. Pazin was ready to fight the twins barehanded. The twins, upholding their assassin's honor, accepted the challenge equally. Running out of the room, Jian saw her mentor Pazin fighting the twin assassins. One of the twins, now free, moved to grab Jian, but Minhai, despite her injuries, clung to his leg, urging Jian to run. Everyone was desperately trying to save Jian's life. Pazin picked up a picture frame from the floor, hooked it around one of the twins' necks, and pulled hard. Jian was terrified and ran out of the room, crying. Seeing his dead brother, the surviving twin lost all sanity and aimed his gun at Pazin. Meanwhile, Songjo broke free from brother and drew his gun. Jian ran all the way into the warehouse, which was filled with bodies. Not far away, Songjo spotted Jian hiding in the warehouse. Jian was panicking, unsure of what to do. Her mind filled with her uncle Jongman's voice. Jian forced herself to calm down. She saw a gun among the pile of bodies and picked it up. She had to learn to protect herself. Songjo crept into the warehouse and saw Master Kim's gruesome corpse. He was about to take Master Kim's ring when the warehouse lights suddenly turned on. Jian stood behind him, aiming the gun at Songjo, but Jian had never killed anyone and couldn't pull the trigger. Songjo could tell. He calmly stood in front of Jian, completely unafraid. Suddenly, a noise came from another part of the warehouse. It was Jongman, who had escaped from the mall and used the mall's computer to restart it. At that moment, he noticed an AK-47 on the ground.
잠시만 내가 죽였는데 가슴밥에 숟가락이나 얹으려고 씨발 내가 억울한 뭐야!
Songjo was momentarily stunned. Songjo quietly moved behind Jongman. Jongman had no bullets left and had no chance of fighting back. Jongman was scared. Songjo raised the axe and killed Jongman. Seeing Jian crawl into the mall, Songjo followed her inside. Jian wanted to get a more powerful gun, but it was locked away, and she couldn't access it. Seeing Songjo coming down, Jian quickly found a place to hide. On the other hand, Pazin limps back to the house. Bullets are flying behind him and the twins are chasing Pazin. Pazin fled into the bathroom. There was a tunnel in the bathroom, and the twins followed him into it. At the end of the tunnel, there was a door. The twins thought Pazin was hiding behind it and kicked it hard. One kick set off the fuse, and the twins were blown to bits. In the mall, Jian and Songjo played a deadly game of hide and seek. With no room for error, Songjo put on infrared goggles and set up flashbang traps around the mall, ensuring that Jian would be caught if she passed through. He also taunted Jian to provoke her into making a mistake. Jian moved carefully, but she couldn't see the infrared lines with her naked eye. Despite her caution, she triggered one. Jian was thrown back by the blast. Songjo followed the blood trail but couldn't find Jian. Jian had hidden in brother's secret sleeping compartment. Jian cried as she bandaged her wound, unsure of what to do. Her uncle's words kept echoing in her mind. Now, Only she could save herself. Watching Song-jo on the surveillance, Jian devised a plan. Song-jo raises his gun and searches for Jian. Suddenly, blinding lights flashed from a distance. Jian floored the gas pedal and drove a forklift straight at Song-jo. Unexpectedly, the forklift was bulletproof. Song-jo dodged the forklift but accidentally triggered his own trap. He was thrown by a flashbang and fell into a pit Jian had prepared. Song-jo was drenched in gasoline. Jian aimed her gun at Song-jo, but he wasn't afraid. He knew she couldn't shoot to kill, but Jian didn't plan to shoot Song-jo. Instead, she aimed at the gasoline on the ground. Flames engulfed Song-jo. Just as the fire was about to consume him, the mall's fire suppression system activated, extinguishing the flames on Song-jo. Although he was severely burned, Song-jo survived. Song-jo grabbed an axe, ready to send Jian to hell. Jian killed for the first time, shooting Song-jo and avenging her parents. Elsewhere, Pazin woke the unconscious Minhai. They were both alive. Brother also survived thanks to his bulletproof vest. Brother returned to the mall and woke the devastated Jian. Brother then reactivated the mall's system, just when they thought they could catch their breath. Another disaster struck. The big screen suddenly lit up with dozens of red signals. These red signals represented the hitman who had bought weapons from Jongman. It turned out that Babylon had placed all of them on a hit list, with $1 million bounty on each of their heads. Assassins they had previously dealt with were now coming for the reward. Brother asked Jian what to do since she was now the mall's owner. Jian told Brother to unlock the doors. She grabbed an axe and beheaded Song-jo. Minhai finally woke up, worried about Jian's safety. Pazin reassured her that Jian was still alive because the assassins kept coming. They would have to fight to the death for Jian. At that moment, assassins had completely surrounded Jongman's home, with some entering the warehouse. Then, Brother appeared, covered in C4 explosives, holding a detonator. The assassins didn't dare make a move. Jian knew they couldn't kill all the assassins. Even if they killed this wave, more would come. So, she made a decision. Brother threw Song-jo's head from a sack onto the ground. He showed the assassins that the top hitman, Song-jo, had just been killed by Jian. The assassins were shocked.
창고 안에 6, 집안 거실에 6, 그리고 마당에 6, 전부 레드코드 18분. 여러분께서 지금 이대로 돌아가신다면 아무 일도 벌어지지 않을 겁니다. 바빌론에서 건 $400만 현상금도 제가 바로 n분의 1로 세금 공제 없이 입금시켜드리겠습니다. 저희 삼촌 정준만과 했듯이 저와도 똑같이 거래하시면 됩니다. 코드도 그대로 유지될 것이고 가끔 정준만보다 좋은 가격에 수수료 할인도 약속드립니다. 하지만 만약 포기하지 않고 여길 차지하겠다고 계속 덤빈다면 여기서 다 죽게 될 거야.
They're here for the money, not to get killed. Jian achieved the effect she wanted. The assassins realized that they didn't need to let Babylon have all the benefits. Getting cheaper weapons for future jobs was a good deal for them. The assassins agreed to Jian's proposal and collectively retreated. Brother returned to the mall, too frightened to stand. Minhai could no longer hold on. Reaching the brink of exhaustion, Jian emerged from the mall, seeing bodies strewn all over the warehouse and her home. Her mentor Pazin and Minhai were nowhere to be found. Alone, she finally broke down, sitting on the ground and sobbing uncontrollably. Surviving such a life-and-death battle was indeed not easy. However, before long, a bus slowly approached from a distance. Jian thought it was another group of assassins. She raised her gun, shouting for them to stop coming, but the people who got off were not assassins. Jian had seen this man before at Jongman's funeral. It turned out that Bongo was a yellow code for post-assassination cleanup. He had been hired to help Jian clear the bodies from her home. After a night of cleaning, all the bodies were removed. Bongo advised Jian to return to the mall, as the assassinations were not over. At that moment, Bongo's subordinate reported another suspicious vehicle approaching. Bongo readied his gun, but the person who got out of the taxi was the badly injured Jongman. It turned out Jongman had faked his death. He had gone alone to Babylon to seek revenge on Bale, and now he returned wounded. Jongman was alive, but Bale's fate was unknown. Seeing her uncle alive, Jian smiled. The story ends here, but perhaps there will be a second season. This season mostly tells the story of Jian's growth. Let's look forward to Jongman's story in the second season.